I have a very amor fati attitude towards my mistakes and towards the things I've done wrong. Like, basically, I have no regrets. Like, I don't regret anything because I learned something from everything that, except all my regrets are rock related. And that involves like rock stars who have died before I got to see them live. Tom Petty, Prince, there's certain David Bowie, like people I just didn't see live. And those regrets are valid because unless there's unless there's a hologram of Bowie that is going to perform at Coachella, which I'll never go to. I'm never going to see them. My business is your business. It's all up in my lady business with me, Mary Nisi. Hey, hi. Welcome to All Up in My Lady Business once again with my my main squeeze, Peaches. And Peaches brought Melissa. So it is great to have you back again here with me on the journey of the T&J.
Hi.
Hi. We were a Rama Lama Dang Dong just rambling last week about
Rantalanta ding donging.
I am a ding dong, but now we're back for another edition of this. So where should we start?
I mean, 20th anniversary. It's next week, right?
Actually, it's on the 10th. The 10th.
Yeah, Monday is the day, and then the party is on Thursday.
That's crazy.
And then the party is on Thursday, and it's kind of crazy, and it feels weirdly organized. Thanks, Joan.
Yeah. Big shout out to 5 Grain Events, Joan Cinquegrani. I always think we started our companies at the same time, but she started her company like 5 years after me. But she reached out to me. She was like very pro about it, and she like had Googled like the best companies, and then just contacted me. I was like, "Hi, I'm starting a planning company. I'd love to meet you." And I'm like, "Ooh, that's interesting." And so I met with her, and now we're very close. In fact, last week we went to DC together for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Conference, and we actually shared a room one night, and I learned a lot about Joan. Joan is the coolest. Like, you don't really get to spend much time non-businessy with your business friends, and I mean, I feel like Joan definitely crossed the Rubicon into friend a long time ago, but I feel like I like understand her so much more now, and I just like her even more. And that's a good thing when you like spend more time with someone and you like them more instead of you like spend more time with them and you're like, I don't think I like this person.
We
Or
should just talk at events that we're working together, but not Joan.
in a very lovely, non-judgmental way. But I would at some point like to talk about what happened at the 10KSB conference because it was bananas.
Yeah, we can
But it's not.
definitely have a whole, like, how Mary did that and what it was all about. Because when I first started at Toast and Jam, you guys were just flinging 10 KSB around like that was a thing that mere mortals had any clue what that was, and I know
Well,
this much more,
it's
but
seriously, it is sort of a muggle situation where like if it's like if you know, you know. It's like and when you meet other people who went through the program, it's very much like, we speak a different language.
instant family.
But we're still in 20th anniversary stuff right now.
That's
So,
right.
for those who are just tuning in, Toast and Jam is turning 20 next week on Monday. November 10th was the day that I got incorporated. And here we are 20 years later, kicking it and doing
Yeah.
things.
So we've got a bunch of questions for the 20. Well, a bunch. We have 20 questions for the 20th anniversary. And we just dipped our toe in really
Mhm.
last week. So we're gonna maybe see if we can get up to the ankle today.
Sure.
We'll try.
The
So
modesty, just showing ankles like it's
we're
the
showing
Gilded
Toast and Jam
Age.
ankles today. So
Scandalous.
you'll wish that this was on video. I guess
It is on video. Unfortunately, it is on video. I put on mascara as if it helps. Like psychologically, it was
I have
making
my mascara on from yesterday. What does that say about me?
that you a hoe.
Uh,
It
a
doesn't.
pretty direct line.
Yeah.
So we kind of talked last time about some of the like leading up to how did we get there and how did you know that this was the forever thing, but we didn't really talk that much about actual DJing and what DJing for events is all about. And I'm sure the people want to know, like, when you started out DJing, I know it was a very different process both from a planning, guiding clients, influence standpoint, but also just the act of DJing. You
Mhm.
went from the world of analog to digital. So, how's your approach to DJing or events sort of evolved over the last 20 years, Mary Nisi?
Great question.
Mhm.
It's interesting to call it like analog to digital because CDs I think are technically digital, right?
Sure. But it's not like you never touched a record
No, and
ever in your life. Yeah.
I did start DJing on vinyl, but not like in the, like, jungle wickety wickety scratching kind of way, just in the, like that's just how I had owned a lot of music, and we didn't have computers. I didn't download a song, and in fact, I was very anti-downloading music, until I started doing weddings, and it became an imperative. I mean, you can't, people are asking for stuff you don't have, then you have to download it. But I would then download it and then I would burn it onto a CD. It wasn't like I could just play it off my computer. I don't think I actually started DJing on my laptop until 2012. And when I did it, I felt like I was selling out. I have this like weird, like,
It's just the anti-disestablishmentarianism
it's
of,
just the
the
longest word in the
era.
dictionary that I am. But I think it's also just like the Gen X, like
Yeah, no, that's yeah,
contrarian,
definitely.
like,
And
um,
the scrappy, like, that's just our identity, I think, from our generation is just like, I remember, like, the coffee shop that I worked at in college, like, our T-shirt said, "No corporate aftertaste." It just
mhm.
feels like we're, of this kind of when we were cool, you wouldn't have downloaded music,
Yeah.
right?
No. No, no, no. And it also felt
That
like
was a long time ago.
it also felt like you were stealing from artists. Like, and I had enough friends that were musicians that I didn't want to start getting in the habit of doing something that was gonna take I would never download a independent record. Like, it was like that
Unless
was
you paid for it, right? Well, that was, like, a
yeah.
thing that you could eventually do.
And but even, like, I would buy CDs, like, it was, when I was doing weddings, when I was doing CDs, I would go and buy. I mean, it was an expensive endeavor, I mean, it was expensive because you're paying the artist correctly,
Yeah,
but,
which
you
was
know
fun to do
so,
and continue.
anyway, obviously I was very into music my whole life. There's not a lot of places for women, at least when I was kinda coming up and the crowds that I was hanging out with, I was always one of the few women that were around, and we were all kind of pitted against each other because there could only be one woman at a time in a room. I mean, Jessica Hopper and I have talked about that extensively on this podcast about how we were kept from each other, but, it's more like you don't see a lot of women, like, girls in bands were very rare. If there was a woman in a band, there was one, and she was the bass player. Uh,
Darcy, hey. Sorry, that was my
well, Darcy, the
as a
Kims,
bass player,
yeah.
that was my thing.
I couldn't see myself in a job, in a career, doing anything in that world that anyone would take seriously or that I even felt confident enough to even try because I just didn't see that. And DJing really wasn't a thing that had really hit my world. Like there were people who DJ at like Danny's, like there were bars where there would be DJing. And actually the Hideout was doing the dance parties, which was usually just one DJ and it was usually a dude. Although there were a couple of women, Sarah Fryer, there were girls that were doing it, women that were doing it, but it really
Quick
didn't
an
take a I'm sorry?
uh, I just rewatched the episode of Portlandia where everyone starts DJing, like, they go to, like, talk to their mom, and she's like, "Are you coming to my set?"
It's like that one scene in, it's like my favorite scene well, it's not my favorite scene, that movie's hard to watch, I don't know if I can ever watch it again, but, Promising Young Woman, did you see that movie? It's Bo Burnham, and, it's an Emerald the woman that did, Saltburn and,
Yeah, didn't watch that one either.
Emerald, I can't remember her last name. Anyway, in the movie, it's Bo Burnham and, Carrie, she's married to the
Butler?
Mumford& Son guys.
Yeah, yeah. Carrie it'll come to me. You keep talking, and then I'll just
It's a movie. It's an amazing movie, but it is a tough watch. It's like how you'll never watch, like, Happiness twice or Requiem for a Dream. I don't think I can watch that movie again.
no.
And there's a big turn at the end that also, once you've been spoiled, it's like, whatever. Anyway, there's a scene where, Carrie is bringing her
Well,
is
again
bringing yeah, Carrie Mulligan is bringing Bo Burnham home for the first time, and he's a doctor, to her parents to meet, and they're like, "Oh, so I hear you're a doctor." And he's like, "Your parents must be proud." And he's like, "Well, actually, they wanted me they wanted me to be a DJ." And, the way I howled when I mean, it was a really good joke. Like,
I love it. I love it.
doctor. Well, they wanted me to be a DJ.
Almost would make me watch it, but I'm not going to.
It's an incredible movie. So anyway, I'm coming up. I'm in this rock world, and no, there's DJing isn't really a thing, and I wouldn't have never have thought that I could do it anyway, or that anyone would want what I have to put out there to play. And then I had two friends, Carrie and Colleen, who were both college radio DJs at their college when they were, and they were in college in like the late 80s and 90s. So at this point, it's like this is like 2000, I think, was when I started DJing on the radio. Their WLUW was Loyola's radio station. It was community. So like anybody could get a show if they had an opening, and those two had been DJing on it for a while. And then I kind of sat in with Colleen on her show a couple of times. And then we were told that you can't have two people on the air at the same time. So I
Nope,
trained.
can't have 2 women in the same room, Mary.
No, 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 no. And so I got my own show. So I was DJing on WLUW, and we would have like events. Like we would have like DJ nights at various bars, or we would have like a show where they would want people DJing in between bands. And I didn't know what I didn't know, but I had a lot of vinyl. And so
I wanna make a sidebar, make a T-shirt out of that.
that was says what?
I didn't know what I didn't know, but I had a lot of vinyl.
I'll get that tattooed on my bicep. It's my first tattoo. And I would start DJing, and like people really liked it. And it was like, it was as surprising to me as it was to anybody else. Like that I just kind of had an innate ear for it. And, I had cool music, like, cause I had been, I have a really good record collection. And so I started DJing around, and we would do a lot of stuff for, Colleen and I DJed a lot together. And then Colleen moved away, and I would DJ alone. And then we had the fateful phone call to the request line where they asked me to DJ their wedding, Chris and Katie Brown. And so I did their wedding, and I did that on CDs. They had given me basically a phone book of CDs. And I had like a 5-disc changer from our living room, like the thing we watch DVDs on. That was one of my inputs, and the other one was a Discman. And and I did that wedding and was like, that was the greatest thing I've ever done. I need to keep doing this. And so when you start doing weddings, people get it. They hear you're doing it, then all of a sudden you can do all kinds of things. I started DJing for these fashion shows that were happening at they were like underground, like DIY spaces.
Will Ferrell
And
was there, Ben Stiller.
Ben Stiller?
Sorry. Zoolander, that's my, where my brain goes when I think about, like, a fashion show,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you know, in a warehouse,
Yeah, it
pretty
was.
somewhere, having a walk off. Anyway, and then now I'm gonna picture you there.
Yeah, it was, and again, it was like there was a lot of like her, because like there were people that I would see at at bars and clubs and shows are all around, and then when I was there in that position, there were people that were like, I didn't know you knew how to DJ, and I'm like, you know nothing about me. You've just seen me getting drunk at the Rainbow, and probably making assumptions about me, because everyone makes assumptions about everyone, but I think especially women who are in the scene. So started doing the things at the fashion shows, and then I just realized that I could just walk into places and ask them if I could DJ. So I was at Danny's one night, and I asked if I could DJ there, and then I just wanted to DJ. I would DJ at Danny's all the time, and then I DJed at the Bottle. All of these, just these places around. And then eventually Carrie and I wound up getting a residency at the Hideout. So we were doing like once a month or so. We were doing the late night dance parties. So we're still on CDs at this point. And when Carrie and I would DJ, it was really fun. And when I tell people we did this, we would tag team every song we switched off, and we wouldn't tell the other person what we were playing until we hit play in it. So you only had like up to 2.5 minutes to figure out what you were playing next.
Yeah, I love it.
And so it really makes you really have to stay on your toes. And I remember Carrie being like, do I have to stay in this till the end of it? I'm like, no, get out of it whenever you want to. Like, I'm not married to the whole of the song. I'm only, there for the beginning of it. And so we learned how to like get out of songs quickly. We learned how to, because with weddings, when I started doing them, when I finally got DJ equipment, my DJ equipment was CDs, and it didn't have a BPM counter in it. And so I had to, I had the BPM written out on almost every on all of my, like, I had, like, packs of CDs that were, like, new wave, 50s, 60s. I had them all kind of broken up by decade or genre, and then we
Mhm.
had I had the BPMs because that was, like, part of what I learned when I worked for Beep. But I had a very intrinsic I have a kind of an intrinsic BPM counter inside of me because for so long I
This is
didn't have.
true. Like, I witnessed it.
Yeah, so I had to really learn how to just by hearing, and I didn't know anything about key. I still barely know anything about key, but I think I have a really good, like, internal key because if things just don't like, even if they're the same BPM, it's like they don't have the same energy or they don't have the same key, and I just
It's
kind
in
of
your
know.
DNA too, right? From, like, not ever having any of those tools or that, like, information kind
Mhm.
of back from, DJing just based on instinct and vibe and
Raw dogging it, maybe
yeah,
one would say.
yeah. So it seems like it probably just becomes part of how you hear and not necessarily all, like,
I think it
musical whatever
Well, and I
theory
think
based.
part of it, but even beyond the theory of it, because I mean, the theory of it is basically what sounds best and what's the most harmonious or whatever. And so I also think it kind of leads into my like codependent people pleasing because, if you're playing two songs that are the wrong BPMs and they aren't in the same key, it's going to sound either like shoes in a dryer or it's going to sound wrong and it kind of turns people off. So I think whenever I see people leaving the dance floor, it is like death. It's like an ego death every time I clear the floor. So I think I have an internal thing to keep people there. Like I think I'm really sensitive to just how people are like vibes and stuff. And it's like this ineffable thing that can't be trained and it can be honed, I think.
Yeah.
But I think you have to be a sensitive person to be the kind of DJ that I am, which is I feel like I can't do the same thing twice. I feel like I kinda never know what I'm gonna play until I get there, until I feel like what even when I'm on the radio, it's like, what am I feeling today? And then I'll notice that everything I'm playing is like sad sack, and I'm like, "I must be in a bad mood." And then with dance floors, it's like if people are like gunning, I will probably not play any slow songs because it's just what the room is giving me. But there's a vibe, and like you have to kind of pick up on that. And I think that that's something that I have either a unique talent for it or I have just been doing it for so long that it is, I mean, I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of weddings. Like I've done hundreds of radio shows. And I think radio also, you have to change energy so much. Like you do everything in 3 song sets and then you reset in 3 songs and you reset in 3 songs and you reset. So like yeah, and you wanna keep changing it up, and so I think I've had good places to hone the ability to change directions, and especially when Carrie and I were doing those tag teams, we called them smashing times. When we would do smashing time, like, having to just really think about what's next. I will say it was kind of a bummer when we did go digital and we started DJing on the laptop because you could see it, so I would literally not look at the computer until she hit play.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because even with all the DJ conferences I go to and I see a lot of, like, fancy DJs DJing, there's some DJs where there's, like, certain songs that I suppose they could be, like, calling cards or whatever, like, I'm like, my signature song is this, but even that's a little I think it's weird that I hear them do the exact same routines over and over again because I feel like if I did that, they would be like, "Mary plays the same, 3 songs every time I hear her play." And I don't think they would think of it as, like, my calling card, although I end every hot flash dance with "Murder on the Dance Floor."
Mhm.
That is my only consistent thing is I end it always with that because I just murdered.
Until, get, like, another one
Yeah,
maybe, right?
yeah. I'm not married to it, but I kinda like that it's like, when they hear that song, if you've been before, you know that it's over.
Yeah.
I like a little consistency.
So, how do you feel like if you were to do a wedding today, do you think your approach to how you program for that and, like, what the questions that you ask and stuff is different from, let's say, you know, 10 or 15 years ago?
That's an interesting question because yes, because I've become a better DJ. So I very much, which is kind of a bummer, is that I definitely now become more of like a slave to the BPM
Mhm.
a little bit more than I ever would have before. Before I learned, especially when I was digital. Once I went digital, it was so much easier to be able to do it by BPM because you can just sort and it's right there. And there's certain BPMs that are that most songs that you would dance to fall into. Like a Billie Jean, not to use Michael Jackson, but he was, the cornerstone of a lot of dance parties for me. Like Billie Jean is, I think it's actually 116, but I always bump it up to 118. 118 is like is a very typical like 118, 120. Like there's a lot of songs that are in 118, 120. That is like everybody can, it's not too fast, it's not too slow. Kesha, every Pitbull song. Flo Rida always is in 120. Pitbull's more of a 128 to 132 guy. We Found Love is 128. Like, but if you go down to like 108 is also a very popular one. Like 108 is Staying Alive and okay, I'm blanking on other 108s. But then 100, which is like Dancing Queen, and like 72, which is like in the 72 to 90s, like every Drake song is down there. And
For
so
the magic of the doubling of the BPM, a
yeah,
little.
so like so 128 is also 74,
Mm. Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
No.
No,
It's 50
64.
plus, yeah, 64. So you can either do your BPMs as their actual BPMs or do them by half, which is great to do them by half because like Take on Me, which I think is like 142, is like the same thing as
I'm letting you do it.
70 71. 71. Thanks. Anyway, I hope this is really interesting to people to understand the way
Mary's
this works.
has changed over time.
But it's interesting because one of our DJs was DJing a party for my best friend, when she first started. So she's not as she's still a little green, but she still has it going on. She was making really great choices of the songs, but she was playing really great songs, but they were, like, completely the wrong BPM, but they sounded right. So it was, I bet they were probably right in key,
Mhm.
but they weren't the right BPM, and it was just fade ins. It was just fading from one song to the other. And that's definitely how I started DJing for the first 10 years. I'm definitely known as a selector DJ as opposed to a technical DJ because I'm pretty good at figuring out exactly what is good for that moment, whether it is BPM or chord correct. And every DJ will say that at some point they're not gonna always stay in key and they're not always gonna be within the BPMs because sometimes just the right song is not gonna be in that, and you have to make that kind of choice. And that was how I DJ all the time, was that way. And then once I got Serato, I think in 2012 was when I made the jump to digital. Once I started DJing digitally, and it's so funny because when I did that, I always felt like it looked like I was cheating, and so I would really make a big, like, show of typing things in and, like, really making it look like I'm doing something, like, as if anybody cares. Like, it was such a dumb waste of my brain space. But once I started DJing with the software, that was when I realized how much easier it was to, like, actually beat match because you can see the waveforms. So 2012 was when I started becoming more of a technical DJ, and it does sound better. Like, it sounds like if you're not really paying attention, it sounds great. And nobody is listening the way another DJ would listen. So, like, it just sounds better. And so I guess because I have gotten better technically, I feel like I'm a little more boring. Only boring is not the right word, but I just feel like it's easier to have like little sets you always do because they just click together,
But it
which,
would seem like, I mean, as somebody who's only very recently kind of gotten into house music, like listening to different like sets from different festivals and things like that, like you definitely have like favorites, right? And like I would think that if I would ever want to go to one of those festivals, which will never happen, like the familiarity of like certain transitions or certain moments or tricks or whatever, like something that's fun to hear over and over, So it's just
well,
like
and house music is a different thing because house music, I mean, I'm sure maybe I'll get hate mail for this one, but like house music is the easiest music to DJ because it's all 120 to 132. Like it just all operates right there.
to
And
go from
so
one song to another,
yeah,
right?
to DJ to make it sound good. Now, I think the thing that makes house music interesting is when they have, a long like outro and what they're bringing in, and like they put like they are kind of layering different, like the really good house DJs aren't just playing one track and then going to another track. They're doing like cool shit with effects and, other things that I am patently not good at. It's like I am embarrassingly bad at like that kind of stuff. But when people say like, "I want to hear house music," I'm like, "I got you," because I can make it sound good enough that no one cares. Like they will think it sounds as good as anything else. But I'm not a. I would never say I could do a great job with house music. I can do a part of a night as house music.
I love it. All right, well, let's, keep it going so we can get, maybe to a shin bone today. The greatest challenge that turned in or just a challenge that turned into one of your biggest lessons. Now, before I release that question to you, I feel like there are so many different challenges. There's the entrepreneurial aspect of Toast and Jam in 20 years, and obviously there's, like, stuff that goes down at weddings that then ultimately kind of informs your approach, to future weddings and whatnot. But I feel a little more interested in the business entrepreneurial side because I think there's a gatekeepiness can be,
Mhm.
when it comes to challenges, often it could be a synonym for mistake or, something, and then people don't necessarily want to give that up. So,
Sure.
what's something that you feel like was really maybe like I don't know, kind of manifested into how we operate today or
Yeah.
maybe I know we've had eras, right, in the Toast and Jam world of it all, so
I have a very amor fati attitude towards my mistakes and towards the things I've done wrong. Like, I have a no regrets. I have like basically, I have a no regrets. Like, that's my, I'm like, I will not, I don't regret anything because I learn everything. I learn something from everything that fucks up. All my regrets are rock related, and that involves like rock stars who have died before I got to see them live.
mm,
Tom Petty, Prince, there's certain David Bowie, like people I just didn't see live. And those regrets are valid because unless there's unless there's a hologram of Bowie that is going to perform at Coachella, which I'll never go to, I'm never going to see them. But from an entrepreneurial perspective, when I started Toast and Jam and in the wedding industry in general, everybody basically staffs their wedding with independent contractors. So if you're a wedding planner, if you're a caterer, if you are a florist, like you've got hired guns that are coming in to either, work with you, assemble the floral, or DJ your events, or even like second shooters or whatever at weddings. Almost everybody operates in a 1099 situation, and that's because almost everybody weddings will never be replaced by AI because you need humans there to do everything.
amen to that.
And it's artists, like, it's people that, are creatives in this position. Like, venture capital has been trying to get into the wedding industry for years, and it's impossible because they can't cut corners. You can't cut corners on weddings, and that's exclusively what private equity is. So, everybody was independent contractors, and I operated that way. That's how everybody operated, and then I got audited. I've probably mentioned it a million times, but I got audited by the Illinois Department of Employment Security, and, it was in 2012 or it was in 2013, when I was 8 months pregnant, and, I got audited, and I'm like, "What do you mean I'm getting audited? Like, what is the Illinois Department of Employment Security?" Like, I had no idea what this I was sure it was a mistake, and really what it was that they were after the crash in 2008, like, a lot of people filed for unemployment, and it basically wiped out the unemployment fund, and so they started going after businesses that had exclusively independent contractors because they were assuming that most of those businesses were probably categorizing their, employees incorrectly. And so I got through that audit, and it sucked because I also realized that it was also a lot of opinion based. Like, it wasn't like cut and dried rules based. You were kind of like, if the auditor was cool, then it
Oh,
went
sure.
better. And that's when
Yeah.
you realize like there really are no rules. Like, they make rules to make it seem like you can get ahead, and they just exist as like little barriers. And then if you kind of get beyond that barrier of like you're cool enough to make it be, it's like it's kind of infuriating. And when I got audited, I wound up owing the state. So I lost the first audit on the fact that I had too much control over the DJs. The Fed have these 10 rules, and if you look at a person and you can say no to all of these 10 things, then they are a true independent contractor. And one of them is on control. So if you are telling them where to work, when to work, how to work, what to wear, all of that, that you can't. So I lost that. I lost the first one on that, and it cost me $3,000 to the state. I only owed $3,000 to the state in fines. I had to pay like $25,000 between the lawyers, the accountants. I had to have all of my contracts redrawn, my independent contracts redrawn, and we did all this like sort of mental gymnastics to like creatively recall like rename things so that it would not give off the illusion of control. And I was working with like the top labor firm in Chicago. I mean, it was like I really took this very seriously because I did not want to have to deal with this again. And then 2 years later, I got audited again because apparently when you get audited once, they think, well, let's just see if they did the thing that we so they went back to the well and I lost that one. So there's the Fed that has their 10 rules and then the state can also have their own rules. While the state kind of supersedes the Fed. So it's kind of like how the federal minimum wage is
Yeah.
7.25, but almost every state is at like 15. So I lost that one because uh, the Illinois has one that says that the business can't do like the contractor can't do what the business is. So like you can hire a painter to come and paint your office because you're not a painting company, but if you're a DJ company and your independent contractors are DJs, then they should be employees. Again, that cost me like $3,000 in fines and another, 15, $20,000 in legal fees, and it was just like I'm like I can't keep doing this because it is all encompassing. It is so invasive. I mean, you have to give them 7 years of books. There's no secrets. I had to give them access to my email. I mean, it was like insane the amount of like how utterly invasive and all consuming it was. And I wanted making the DJs employees at that point. And because I didn't want to keep dealing with this. So, I went through a whole rigmarole to do that. It was really fucking hard to go through that. It was so expensive. And so when I went to try to make everybody employees, I had to get workers' comp insurance. And I couldn't find an insurance company that would insure me because they had never written a policy for a DJ company. So they didn't know what to charge me. So it took me forever to find a company that would even write the policy. And then when they wrote the policy, they had to put me at the highest rate because they didn't know what kind of liability they were opening themselves up to. So like that first year, my workers' comp policy was $27,000 because yeah, and so it's like I went from like, and so that's $27,000 of my profitability
Yeah.
evaporating.
Yeah.
And I didn't know rules. Like you have to treat employees differently. Like you can't, there's certain, you got to give sexual harassment training once a year. And there's all these things you have to do when you have an employee. And I didn't know any of it. So I hired ADP to be able to run my payroll, but they also had an HR side to it. They were, writing my handbook and making employment agreements and like all this shit that like nobody has ever read a handbook in the history of their entire lives, but I have to like give it to the DJs and then they have to like send me a thing that says they read it. It's like just all of this bureaucratic bullshit that you have to do in order to like run your business as a business.
I know we've had a lot of conversations around just like, the how sort of challenging it is to be like want to sort of be chill, low key, like keep things easy and not, require a bunch of busy work or things like that for people, but to stay above board and to make sure that you can defend them, make sure that, the insurance actually works and it sort of all has to happen. There really is, if you're in the middle, you're getting away with something and eventually you're not gonna be able to get away with it anymore. Like,
Well, you're not gonna get away with it if you don't have the right lawyers, if you can't afford the right I mean, like, if I could afford better lawyers, if I could afford to have a team of, an HR person on staff at all times, like, I could beat these things. A lot of these regulations that they have made, in my opinion, are because there's a lot of big faceless corporations. And I think that the further the management gets away from having to have, day to day access to the lowest of their employees, like it's the easier it is for them to make decisions that only benefit the business owner or the board or the shareholders or whatever. And they don't have to look in the whites of the eyes of the people that they're laying off because there's someone else below them that it will do that for them. And so it makes it really easy for them to make these, to do sort of unethical things. And so that's where the feds have to come in and make these regulations so that people are being protected as well as they can. And that protection goes both ways for both the company and for the employee. But most of that stuff is it's more to cover the ass of the business and not really all that beneficial to the employee. From what I've seen. I don't know if Social Security is even going to be there when our DJs are.
Thinking on it.
Yeah, I really I don't know. So, paying into that, like, on your paycheck where you've got your FICA and your Medicaid and your Medicare and your Social Security that comes out, half of the what we pay comes out of your pay, and then I have to pay the other half of it. So, all of a sudden, my payroll expenses went up 10% because or I pay 10% on top of the 10% that you're paying. And so, it's like so it costs me more to pay you than it is the money that you worked to be paid.
Yeah. That's, like when we're always talking about things like, just like a thing that we might like travel or whatever, there's always like a little bit of an administrative bump because it costs money just to even do the thing to make the thing compliant. Like
Mhm.
it's
Well, it's like when COVID was happening and people were like, they wanted their money back. The deposits are non-refundable. They wanted their money back because they weren't gonna get married anymore, and I'm like, "I can't give you that deposit back." Not only is it in the contract that says I don't have to give it to you back, it's gone. That money was spent a million years ago, and they're like, "But you didn't do anything," and I'm like, "This conversation is costing us money. Where do you think the money for this conversation came from?" Like, it's not every cent that you're paid is, like, happening the night of the event,
right. It
like.
doesn't all go to service. It all goes to service and infrastructure. Like you have to have both of those things. That's what you're paying for.
Like, a wedding that happened, 3 years ago provided me with the money that made the marketing that made it possible for you to find me.
Right.
Like, it's like people don't see that all of the parts of it, and they don't have to. Most people don't own their own companies. Most people don't see how the sausage is made, and I always felt like because I owned the company and I was taking a percentage of what the DJs were making, I never wanted to complain to them about what I went through.
Mhm.
They don't wanna hear me say
No.
what a pain in the ass this is, like, how much they don't care how many emails came in overnight. They don't care, you know, if a complaint came in and I have to deal with it, it takes me 3 days to deal with, what they don't care, and I don't blame them because that's what they're paying me for, is to not have to deal with the aftermath of them doing not a great job or the aftermath of having an employee that they didn't explain things correctly to, and now I have to clean up for them, and I'm and
Keeping them insured so they can perform anywhere in the city.
but here's the thing is that, like, when I am doing that for them, when you said, like, "What's an obstacle that you don't mind?" I don't mind doing it. Like,
Mhm.
I used to take the complaints and things a lot more personally than I probably should have because I'm realizing that people, they aren't really complaining about. They're really there's always a it's not always the DJ's fault when they're complaining. There's something inside of them too. Like, I think there's a lot of things that happen at events that are probably more egregious than things I've paid even given money back for, which is very rare, but the client was like, "I know they didn't mean to," or "We fixed it," or whatever. It's very annoying when, like, there's a problem that happens, that it's just a mistake because there's humans involved,
Mhm.
and, they fix it. The event winds up going through, and they're like, "Still, I want money back for this one tiny part of the night where one thing didn't go perfectly." And it's like, "Can you listen to yourself?" Like, think about what we did. We came together and you brought in 180 of your friends and family into a room and we wined them, dined them, we entertained them. Everything went through. We navigated your drunk fucking relatives. We navigated, a glass breaking in the middle of the dance floor and no one got hurt. Like the things that we were able to come together and in spite of anything we pulled this whole thing off. And if the worst thing that happened is that a song got miscued a little bit and it wasn't absolutely perfect, but it was mostly perfect. Like, I'm always striving for perfection. Perfection is not an option. But I can give a mostly perfect situation.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's, I don't know, it's like that is the kind of thing where it makes me just kind of hate humanity a little bit.
I also think is something that we were talking about the other day just related to this is that, like, how much sincerity sort of gives when you see that somebody is trying to do their best. I think it gives even people who sort of have that inclination to kind of complain or ask for a refund or things like that when things, don't go perfectly. I think there's such an opportunity with like what we do because so much of it is rather intimate, the conversations that you're having and the kind of, you're overseeing this incredible event with people's, friends and family. Like, if you're really conveying the genuineness,
Sincerity.
the sincerity of what you're doing, I think that that gives you a lot more flexibility, or I guess just it's easier to say stuff just happens when you know somebody is giving it
Mhm.
110%. And if you're able to convey that you're putting that effort in, I think it's always a shame when, there's an experience where you do hear, negative feedback or something from somebody and you kind of wonder, like, how well did we convey the sincerity? Because I feel
Mhm.
like we had, then we probably wouldn't be hearing about this nitpicky thing,
Well,
So,
and it's like that's part of the reason why in the toast and jam of it all, I want the DJs to have, and we do, the client they have a meeting, with the client like immediately after going to contract because we want them to develop a relationship. Now, I do feel like those relationships aren't as like so the way toast and jam had operated up until Melissa came on and kind of forced me into a direction that I should have been it's the way you have to do it if you want to be able to like actually be a profitable business that can grow,
mhm,
but the DJs did all the sales. So a lead would come in, it would go to the DJ, and the DJ would, convert that into a sale. And they were damn good at it. It wasn't like they
for sure.
I mean, it ran perfectly. It was a great situation, and we had very few complaints, and I think it's because the client really knew the DJ, because the DJ had to, like, sell them on them. They had to show them their expertise. They had to really kind of tap dance a little bit harder to get the client to hire them, and now when they get it, they don't have to do that same tap dance, and I don't think that the DJs are able, and it's not on the fault of the DJ. It's just the nature of the relationship. If you're not having to work you just don't get to know them as intimately as you do when you're really trying to get
Yeah.
their business. I feel like
The
we know
trade-off
them
though,
and
right, was that, there was a major lack of, um, consistent,
yeah,
sort of, expectation setting, and I think that the way that we do things now definitely minimizes that initial intimacy,
yeah,
and commitment to a single person, but as, um, the world of any DJing at Toast and Jam being able to step in if necessary
yeah.
to complete, somebody's wedding, like being really consistent, having a real level of expectation that anybody, regardless of who you're working with, is going to be able to deliver is great. I know that's a little bit of a deviation from
Well, but
where we
it's
started.
all so we did operate with the DJs doing sales forever, and then the other thing about changing the DJs over to employees is that the nature of the relationship is different. Like, before we kinda treated, even though the DJs only worked for me, and that was also a problem that they only worked for me instead of being able to, like, work for me one weekend and work for Cajun Aquarium the next weekend or whatever. Like, they still operated like as if they were having, like, little businesses within Toast and Jam. So, I gave them the lead, they had to sell it, they had to send get the pre-contract information, get it over to me. There was a lot more admin that they had to do and a lot of, like, more work to get the sale. And when we, converted over to employees, it's like you can treat them differently. You have more control. You can, like, actually, and I think there were some DJs that didn't like
Mhm.
the new way, and I don't blame them. So 2017 happens, we get through the pandemic, and then when we one of the things we did is we started offering photo booths, and that was something that we bought them. I bought like 4 photo booths in January of 2020 that were delivered on March 12th, 2020. And so they couldn't really become an intimate part of our sales process, or even that we could even sell them, or I could even develop a sales program around them, because everything died. And so it really wasn't until 2022 that we
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
kind of, like, trying to sell them, and it was really hard because the DJs knew nothing about them, and nor did they want to learn anything about them, and then it was on the people in the office to try to convert that, try to be like, "Hey, you wanna add a photo booth on?" And I was, like, trying to, like, incentivize the DJs to sell them, but you can't. I mean, and I again, don't blame them, but it was really hard to try to get those on. It felt like I was just throwing bad money, like, throwing good money after bad on them, and then we started offering lighting, and, so when I guess was the beginning of 2024? Was that when we made the change? Yeah. So in 2024, after 2023, so 2023 was like the end of COVID. Like it really took us until 2023 to really get through all the redos and we were really having a hard time getting the lighting and the photo booth sold. And Melissa basically pulled me aside and was like, "Mary, come on. We both know that we need to bring the sales inside." It's like literally no other DJ companies do it this way. There's like a handful of DJ companies where the DJs do the sales. So last spring, we made it was a Herculean task once again to change everything over to the sales going inside. And I hated it. I did not want to do it. I felt like, but and it's, there's just trade-offs. I think the trade-off is that the DJ and the client they don't have the same spark, but it's still there. I mean, it is a heavy spark, and maybe I'm even just being sensitive to very minute. I bet the clients probably wouldn't notice, but bringing the sales inside. At least, what's fun for me is that I get to do sales now, and that and I don't really DJ weddings anymore, so I
Yeah.
hadn't really done sales, and it's fun to talk about weddings.
Yeah, and I think it's also kind of this thing where, like, the way that we do it is really I still feel I mean, I've done different kinds of sales, in my life that, weren't around relationships and about celebrations, There's very much just a different kind of vibe with I think our approach to it is more just informational and then making sure that everybody knows how much Toast and Jam can provide at an event in order to achieve whatever the couple is trying to achieve. And I think bringing the sales inside just helps us ensure that every couple is getting that same,
Mhm.
has that same level of awareness around live music, around, even the flexibility of things. Like maybe, 5 years ago, it would have been a thing where it's like, nope, can't add anything, later. You gotta book it now. And it's like, well, that's not actually, true. So by having a more sort of tightly organized way of going about it. We just know that
Well,
everyone
and
has
that's yeah.
access to the same stuff.
And it's the additional services is where, the majority of you know, our profit comes from, which I've now, understand. And when we added more services, like adding on the photo booth, adding on the lighting, and then now adding the live music, because live music was something that, people would have and I mean, first of all, we were losing clients because we didn't offer lighting and photo booth.
Totally.
That
Yeah.
was one of the things that precipitated when we would ask people why they didn't hire us, and they were like, "Well, there was a company that had lighting." And it's like, you know, and my way of thinking about that was like, "Well, we're music focused, so if I'm gonna lose you over lighting, then you weren't our client in the first place." And so I wasn't mad about that, but then I would look at the venues that they were at, I'm like, "Their weddings at Salvage One. They really just didn't hire us because we didn't have a photo booth like that. Like, they're our client, like the people that get married at those places."
Yeah.
So I realized that this was something that we should do, and honestly, I mean, it's true, everything looks better, like, it's like having lighting, it does everything, it makes the party more popping, it makes the room look more, like, cohesive and warm and hug-like.
Me, it's also just that kind of like you're kind of in the same space for a really long time, right? Like you're talking to
6
people and
hours in one room is a long
yeah,
time.
it's a long time. So like having the ability to just turn down the lights and turn up some other lights and completely transform the space makes it feel like you almost have 2 venues, like
Mhm,
it's really serving like a huge, shift in mentality. Like, okay, we've been all serious and like proper all day and hit our marks and said these things. And it's like somebody turn the lights off and let's get crazy. And
mhm.
like
Yeah,
if you don't have that function, to be able to do that, I think you know,
yeah,
it's
like,
you can
we
still have a rager, but you're gonna have way more fun if there's some visual element to it as
I
well.
mean, I love offering disco balls. I mean, I love a disco ball,
Tell 'em
and
hello at Disco Balls.
well, and it was really satisfying. We had our staff meeting, yeah, like, a couple days ago, and I think we've had these lights we've been doing Ape Labs for, like, a year now.
Yeah, I would say that we're probably around that year mark.
We have this our lights are baller as hell. They're from this company called Ape Labs, and they're, like, German, and, like, everything works together really nicely, and, I mean, they were expensive, but they do a great job.
They do.
And Melissa took a poll of, like, how do we feel about the lights? And everyone was like, "We love them." And it was like 'cause, adding anything new to a DJ, they're like, "I don't want new stuff," myself included. And so for them to all realize the value that the lights bring is was really satisfying.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, so it's like every time I've made a change, it's like, it's sometimes I mean, with the audits, everything was kind of forced on me. Like I would still be having everybody be independent contractors if that had never happened.
Mhm.
And it's a really annoying that like after that first round when my workers' comp was 27,000, every year it's gone down a lot because no, I haven't filed any
Right.
claims. But then more companies have been making their DJs W-2. Like when I go to conferences, there's way more companies that are doing that. Now, are they in Chicago? No. But which is very frustrating because it makes it difficult for me to compete on a couple different ways because it's hard to, you know, get some DJs to work for me because if they can work for an independent contractor and make $1,000 and I'm paying 800, like we're actually paying the exact same amount, but they don't see it that way. And my way is actually like paying their taxes for them. They don't have to they don't have to file their taxes in a weird way. Like they can just literally just take their W-2 as opposed to like keeping track of everything and paying
Having
self-employment taxes. And I mean, it's, keeping track of all your mileage, like all the things that you have to do in order to run it that way.
But it was a heavy lift and an expensive endeavor that I'm glad that you can, like, talk about and share because I do think that it also just the impact of really the W-2 employee of it all means that our DJs are Toast and Jam DJs, and they have all of the security and access to 401ks and things like that that make this job feel like something, that is not just doesn't have to be a side gig. Like,
Mhm.
there's enough going on that you can really be a DJ as a real full-time situation.
And especially with us coming up on 20 years, like, this is an industry that it changes a lot all the time because, weddings have fashion, there's trends and they follow fashion. And, like the weddings I'm doing now are completely different from the weddings aesthetically that I was doing in 2006.
Mhm.
But so there's a lot of change. You have to keep up with a lot of things. I mean, music changes all the time. Like you are always getting, the new song of the summer, although there was no song of this last summer.
You heard it here first, kids.
Yeah.
There was no
You
song of
you
the
heard it
summer.
here 6 months after the summer that there was no song of the summer. But you have to keep up with the kids, and it's like, I mean, things are happening now where they're mentioning bands that I don't know, and I'm like, it's like, "All right, I'm aging out of the system, faux show." Like,
I sort of love
I
it, like, though, because like, because I'm so allergic to the idea that I don't know what is popular. Not that I wanna do the popular thing, but I just wanna know what it is. Like, I don't wanna be caught off guard, like, I have, the calls, and then I write it down, and then I go, check out, like, what it is, and then I'm like, "Oh, I see why this is a thing."
oh,
Totally
I
opposite.
pretend like I know.
Yeah, oh, in the moment, for
I'm like,
sure.
"Oh, yes, I definitely know what Dom Dalla is, and I love them, and, I think they are great." Like, I don't know what they are, but, I mean, now I
The
know what Dom Dalla is, but that's, like, a band that keeps coming up that I was like, "I don't know who this is."
the emergence of country music is the one that still is kind of like the most like, I would say probably when we started doing this where, we're talking to everybody that we work with a couple of years ago, reliably 90%, 95% of the couples I would talk to, if I would ask, like, "Are there any genres that you're not that into?" It would be country, like, full stop. And now it's like 20%, like, in just, like, such a short period of time.
But I also wonder what that means, like, because I feel like country
I
music,
do ask. I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?"
and
So
is
it's
it
like,
Morgan Wallen or is it
it's Morgan Wallen, there's, like,
Luke Bryan?
yes, there's a handful, like, and then you have, like, the Casey Musgraves and the Noah Kahns and, like, that kind of thing where it's not quite as, it's a little
Country.
more in between, pop and country and folk and whatever, but it's still just the deep incline from it being such a common thing to now, it just seems much less. And
Yeah.
I can't eat. So I'm not looking up any country people after.
Yeah, no. I mean, especially not the Morgan Wallen of it all because of
Yeah, I did
his
look up
definite
what is
pukiness.
the deal with Morgan Wallen just because I didn't understand the.
And it was like, "Racism." Alright, Melissa, let's put this one to bed.
Sounds good. We're cruising right along. I'm super excited about the party next week. I was talking about it with the fam last night, and I just think it's going to be really cool. And there's like, I feel in the last 2 years, sort of a lot of the stuff that we've done, like when it comes to gatherings and whatever, like a total stress case, just like trying to make sure everything is, kind of where it needs to be. And I love that we're in such amazing hands with Joan,
Hmm.
and like we get to just kind of show up and enjoy everybody.
Well, I'm pretty I mean, I'm very nervous well, not very, but like, it feels very loaded to me in many ways. Like, we used to do these vendor benders. We started doing them in 2008, and the vendor bender was an end of season party that we would do with all of the like florists and caterers and photographers, et cetera, that we worked with throughout the year. And we would have them at my office in Wicker Park. And I would clean out Trader Joe's with snacks, and I would get a keg and like a case of wine. And they would be these drunken, just balls to the wall dance parties. The cops came twice. And then when we moved to the Ampersand building, we tried to have one. It felt like a cocktail party, and it was like weird. And then we tried to do one. We did one at Greenhouse Law. Like we tried, but they kind of fizzled out when we moved away from Wicker Park. And then then COVID, we haven't had one at
Yeah,
all
I've
during
never been
COVID.
to a vendor bender, so
And so we're reviving it for the party.
0.
It's, it and in addition to that, I turned my birthday 50. I turned 50 in January, and I didn't really have a birthday party for myself. So I feel like this in many ways is a birthday party I was able to write off, filled with some of my closest vendor friends. But I did invite friends that I hope are coming,
Oh, yeah.
that are outside of the wedding world. But I have to write a speech, which I'm also kind of having a little bit of
Yeah.
anxiety about. But we have got really fun people coming into it. I was able to I wanted to hire the tamale guy for our wedding, and we didn't. So I hired the tamale guys coming, Claudio, the tamale guy is coming, and got a weed sponsor.
Yep, yep.
Melissa and
Um,
I designed an incredible t-shirt that
so
is
good.
it's so good. For the first 100 people that come. So it's, my friend Stephanie Stopka from Flowers by Stem, her business is also turning 20, and she's giving out bouquets of flowers to everybody. So, it's going to be, and we're also debuting the bread and butter band.
Right. Yes, the toast and jam, uh, 4 instruments?
It's trio. It's a trio, I think.
Trio,
But
okay. Bread and butter.
so Quinn Kirshner, who's our live music coordinator, is a very man about town when it comes to being a hot musician. Like he's a really good drummer, and he like everybody knows who he is. And he is our music coordinator. So I had him put together like a band that's going to play like Steely Dan songs, and I'm not just Steely Dan, but like cool, cool vibey.
It's gonna be fun. It's
I'm
gonna be
super
really fun.
excited. So
Yeah. Cool. Well, on that note, we'll continue, our stroll down memory lane
yeah,
next week, and we'll be in recovery mode because 'cause it'll
yeah,
be the Friday right after the Thursday of
yeah.
our epic 20th anniversary throwdown.
All right, Melissa, you're the greatest.
You're the greatest.
You're the best around.
Yeah.
Never gonna down, but dip it down.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know what it was.
Um. All right.
All right. Chat at ya later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to All Up in My Lady Business with me, Mary Nisi. We'd love for you to like, review, subscribe, follow us at All Up in My Lady Business on the gram. And if you're a female identifying person and you want to dance, you can follow. I mean, everybody can follow it, but if you want to be a part of the magic at Hot Flash Dance Party, sign up for the mailing list to find out where our next party is going to be. And if you are looking for a DJ in the Chicagoland area or anywhere else, money's the same color everywhere. Fly us out. ToastandJamDJs.com has the best. And listen to my radio show. I have a radio show on Chirp Radio at chirpradio.org. That's Mondays, every Monday from 12 until 3 p.m. CST. Today's episode is produced by Shiraz Dada. Theme song composed and performed by, you guessed it, Shiraz Dada. All right, guys. Peace out.